I'm home. Hello? Sweetie. But you're a potato.
The light, crispy taste of Lay's potato chips. One taste, and you're in love.
A little secret, okay?
Hi folks, John Cordisco here with the much anticipated FIDE World Candidates Final Tournament currently being played in Russia. 8 great players, 3 former world champions. It's going to be a great match. The winner of this match plays Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship. Don't miss any of this action. Hi folks, John Cordisco back again with some more action from the FIDE Candidates Final Tournament 2014. This is round 12 action. Vishy Anand, former world champion, is white. Dmitry Andreikin as black. Dmitry qualified by coming in second in the World Cup. Kramnik came in first to get in the tournament here. Unfortunately, my buddy Karl Nakamura is not in it, but he'll be in the next cycle, I'm sure. Anand is white, Andreikin is black. Now, it's funny, it's going to be a Karl Khan. And usually Karl Khan is pretty tame opening. Solid, but not, that exciting. And you're going to see, it's funny how the tame openings end up being pretty wild games. Pretty much standard Karl Khan, 8-6. Knight F3, the double knights on the F and G file, typical stuff. 8-6 to have a tuck away spot for the light squared bishop on 8-7. E6. Bishop comes back. Bishop comes up. Bishop takes, queen takes. And here we are. Typical Karl Khan position. I'm sure these guys have played it and seen this a million times. Knight to D7. F4. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. A lot of stuff can happen. Knight takes. You can play pawn. Queen takes. Pawn comes up. And white's got a hell of a center. Bishop B4 check. C3. Bishop B7. The bishop comes back. Tiny advantage for white. Quarter of a pawn. Now you're going to see. All hell's going to break loose here shortly. Bishop D2. Remember that Bishop D2 move, because later that was a very important move to make. Knight G to F6. Vishy castles long, Andreikin castles short. Queen to F3. Queen to C7. They're just developing. Nothing really that exciting. Tiny advantage for white. C4. A5. Here comes the pawn. Try to disrupt the white king on the queen side. King comes over. Standard stuff when you castle queen side. Rook A to D8. Getting the rooks in the center. Bishop C1. A4. Here comes the pawn. Now, usually when you get something like this, you want to advance this pawn to here and tuck in the king here for safety. Being on top of that, if you notice, black has no light squared bishop, so having the king on A2 is actually a good spot. Vishy brings the rook over. Andreikin moves A3. Vishy didn't go A3 to block that pawn. He pushed the pawn up. Now, looking at a tiny advantage for black. Bishop B4. Rook E3. And this move isn't even on the computer. The computer's top move right now is Rook F to E8 just to get the other rook in action, or Bishop to D6. Why he would move back, I don't know. But what he does is he plays C5. Now, it basically put from a tiny advantage for black to even in the game, but I like that C5 move. It opens things up. D5. E takes, C takes. Now you're going to see this pawn can be very disruptive here. Takes away a lot of the white king's safety. Knight to B6. What to do, what to do. And Vishy, of course, finds the correct move, and the computer agrees Rook doubling up. Now this is a mistake. It's not a blunder. I'll call it a large inaccuracy, just short of a blunder for Andreikin. Knight to e8 and knight to c8 are the two choices for black. I think most of that comes down to after knight here or here, either knight can come here and block that pawn. Andreikin goes queen to c8, and immediately it's over a quarter point advantage for white. If he had gone knight to e8, then knight to f5, c4, pawn takes, f6. And that's still about a 2-point advantage for white, but that was at least a choice for Andreikin. After he went queen to c8, of course, d6, here comes that pawn. Now here's where things start to get really interesting. Interesting indeed. Rook f to e8. That pawn is looming huge. The computer has suggested a line if king had come up. Knight to h5, knight takes, d7. That's interesting thought. This pawn's being triple protected by both rooks and this knight would be in pre. Interesting thought. After rook f to e8, knight to h5. This is where I think the pressure is getting on Andreikin. Even though he's a young guy and, you know, he's not doing that well in the tournament. It's about a 2.25, almost 2.5 point advantage for white at this point. And he goes rook to e6, and it jumps way over. The computer is climbing now to over 4-point advantage. Vishy, I think, makes a mistake here. It's not a huge mistake. He's so far ahead, almost anything wins. But he played knight takes. If he had played queen to f5, or excuse me, if Andreikin had played queen to f5 instead of rook to e6, g4, queen to h7, queen takes. It's much better for black. After knight takes, rook takes. Now, if Vishy instead go d7, and it looks really good for Vishy right here. It really does. I mean, let's backtrack a little bit here. If Vishy, instead of taking the knight on f6, decided to go d7, the queen has to move f5 and queen takes, and black's in a ton of trouble. Absolute ton of trouble. The rook's going to come here, and he's just doomed. But instead, Vishy went, and then rook takes, and then he went d7. Okay, he's up about 3 points. You know, I'm going to split hairs here. You think he was going to win anyway. Queen to c7. Queen to g4. Looking good. Still got this huge attack coming. c4. Interesting move. Interesting move. It's going to start breaking up white's defenses. Rook to g3. Threatening mate. He has to go g6. h5 to hit that pawn. And now comes the counterplay. C takes b3. Of course, we all know the threat, of course, is queen here check if he doesn't take. Plays rook takes. And knight to a4. This is getting crazy. Black's getting counterplay. You can't figure out why. He's getting it from nowhere. Rook takes b4 and h takes g6 are both the same in the computer. Vishy goes h takes g6. If he had taken rook, knight checks, king c2, b5, and you're going to see a similar alignment in the game. After h takes g6, f takes, then rook takes, knight checks, king c2, and then b5. Similar. Now Vishy's still up. Almost 4 points. He's up a full piece for those of you that are counting. Now, it took a lot of guts to move the king to c2, and he's using a ton of time here. I think he wants to make sure he gets this right and wins. After b5, king to b3, knight to a4, he makes the second best choice again. That bishop to d2 move that I told you about, that's the computer's choice. Vishy does the second best choice, queen to f3. Now, if you had gone bishop to d2, after knight checks, king takes, knight takes, king to b2, and white's up a full piece, and I don't see the attack. It's petered out. Bishop to d2 is the move for Vishy. It's really a shame, too. Knight checks, king to c2, after Vishy goes back, king to c2, knight checks again, king comes up. If Vishy had gone instead to d2, after queen to d6 check, knight to d3, the computer's going back and forth. It's slowly crawling up. It's about a 1.5 point advantage for white. But I think the attack is pretty much fizzled out. After king to b3, knight checked again, king to c2, knight to a4, and king to b3. And this is what draw was agreed on. This is move 41. They made the time control. And in the press conference after, Vishy said he was really tired. And there was a lot of calculating in this game. And I thought Vishy had this game. At bishop to d2, was it that hard to spot? That queen to f3 was a decent move. I mean, did a lot of things as well. He was starting to use up a lot of time in the last few moves. And usually you see that when you're on the defensive, because you've got to find the right move in order not to lose. And I think Vishy was satisfied with the draw. I think he was a little disappointed, because if he had won this game, of course, it would have put him up 1.5 points against everybody else with 2 games to go. Impossible to catch him. But he got a 0.5 point. So he's still in the lead. He's still a point up with 2 games to go. I think he's probably going to be able to pull it off. But if he ends up in the end tying or not making it, I think this game is going to be the game that he looks at as not a complete success. Now, I didn't go through even close to the analysis that should be from around move 25 on. If any of you want to go through it, feel free, because there's a ton more analysis. One of those games that you can analyze for a week. Anyway, folks, that's the game from round 12. Vishy Anand, former world champion, current leader in the candidates final. Maybe Vishy will get a rematch again. Anyway, folks, I want you to remember, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.